great place to explore because it's full of life. So we're off on an eco-adventure that will take us on a tour of the biomes of the world.
But wait just a minute. What are biomes anyway?
Biomes are large regions of the world that have similar characteristics and are usually named for the dominant plant life in the area. Of course, biomes are much more than that. They contain distinct communities of plants and animals called ecosystems.
Today, let's check out the deciduous forest biome.
We're here at the Pickering Creek Audubon Center on Maryland's eastern shore, working with scientists called ecologists, who are learning more about deciduous forests. They are examining how changes in temperature, humidity, and rainfall can cause environmental changes in forests.
It seems like a lot of us live near forests, but we probably don't think much about them, or realize how amazing and different they are.
Exactly. So it's time we took a closer look at deciduous forests and the life they hold.
Forests are biomes in which trees are the main life form. Many plants and animals make their homes in forests around the world. But what makes a forest deciduous? Well, most of the trees in a deciduous forest lose and regrow their leaves every year. In fact, deciduous comes from the Latin words for fall off. The reason there are deciduous forests and other biomes is climate. Climate is the average rainfall and temperature of a given area over a long period of time. Throughout the world, there are 3 major climate zones: tropical, polar, and temperate. The tropical zone has a few tropical deciduous forests in it, but most of the forest ecosystems in this zone are tropical rainforests. The tropics occur in the latitudes nearest to the equator, and this is where the most species of plants and animals make their homes. The polar zones are in the latitudes furthest from the equator, around the north and south poles. There are no forests in the polar zones. With bitterly cold temperatures and little food, the plants here are mostly small and low-growing. Temperate zones occur both north and south of the equator, in the latitudes between the polar and tropical zones. There are actually 3 types of forests in the temperate zones. There are temperate deciduous forests, which shed and regrow their leaves each year. Coniferous forests, which are filled with cone-bearing evergreen trees. And temperate rainforests, where evergreens thrive in a climate of cool, damp winters and warm summers. Temperate deciduous forests are found mainly in eastern North America, western and central Europe, and northeastern Asia, including China and Japan. But there are others scattered around the globe. As with every biome, there are certain characteristics that define the parts of the temperate climate zone where most deciduous forests are found. One is precipitation. Precipitation is moisture that condenses and falls to earth, usually as rain or snow. Temperate deciduous forests get an average rainfall of 80 to 200 centimeters per year, while tropical rainforests get between 200 and 1,200 centimeters. Coniferous forests get much less precipitation, between 50 and 125 centimeters. As for temperature, deciduous forests are lands of extremes. In the summer, they often get as warm as 30 degrees Celsius. That's 86 degrees Fahrenheit. But winter temperatures drop well below freezing, as low as minus 12 degrees Celsius or 10 degrees Fahrenheit. And the temperature can change in a day, an hour, or a few minutes, so the weather can be hard to predict.
Here's an amazing fact. It's because of the seasons that we know how old trees are. You can tell their age by looking at a cross-section of a tree trunk. In the spring, trees grow quickly, creating light-colored wood. In the summer, they grow stronger, denser, darker wood. So one band of light wood and one band of dark wood together signify a year of growth. The width of the rings can tell scientists a lot about the growing seasons of the forest where the tree lived. They can tell what the weather was like, if there were droughts or floods, and whether there were fires or other unusual conditions. In an old tree, they can trace the story of the forest, sometimes for hundreds of years. This tree was 50 years old when it was cut down.
Probably the most spectacular characteristic of the trees in a temperate deciduous forest is their autumn foliage display. It's actually the result of an extraordinary adaptation designed to help the trees survive winter.
This is ecologist Mark Scallion who showed us this phenomenon while out in the field on our eco-adventure. Mark told us that as autumn weather becomes cooler and the days become shorter, the trees no longer have the available sunlight and water to produce enough energy to survive the winter. Because of this, the trees cut off the water to their leaves. A special pigment called chlorophyll gives leaves their green color. As the leaves begin to dry out, the chlorophyll begins to break down, allowing the other pigments that are in the tree's leaves to show. Those yellows and oranges have been there all year, but you can only see them because the green chlorophyll has broken down. After all the colors have changed and autumn comes to a close, the leaves fall to the ground where they slowly break down, becoming the nutrients for the trees.
As the leaves fall, the trees go dormant. They settle into a state of suspended animation for about 6 months. Even the buds on the branches wait to be awakened in spring. This saves energy. And the lack of leaves provides the trees with an extra defense. It's good protection from a buildup of heavy ice and snow. If the leaves remain, frozen precipitation might attach to them and weigh down the branches, which could snap in a strong wind. In spring, as the days get longer and temperatures warmer, deciduous trees have what appears to be a rebirth. The dormant buds sprout new leaves, ready to soak up the sunshine.
Autumn leaves certainly turn some amazing colors, but let's do an experiment to see for ourselves. Our hypothesis is that leaves have these colors in them all year round, even though they all look green through the summer. This experiment uses a process called chromatography, a technique that will allow us to separate all the different colored pigments that are in a leaf. We need a few supplies: safety glasses, rubbing alcohol, an eyedropper, some strips of filter paper, a mortar and pestle, some wooden sticks, pencils, masking tape, jars, and a variety of green leaves. We'll also need a notebook to describe our results. The first step is to check that your filter paper is the right size. The strip should be about a 1/2 inch wide and a bit longer than your jars are deep. Now, pour a little of the alcohol into the jar. You want to pour in just enough so that the liquid barely touches the paper when we put it back in. The next step is to take a sample of the leaf's pigments. The best way to do this is to grind up 1 or 2 leaves. A mortar and pestle works great for this. Add a few drops of alcohol, if necessary, to make a thick paste. Finally, rub a green spot of this paste onto your filter strip. You want the spot to be about 2 centimeters or 3/4 of an inch from the bottom of the paper. Now, we'll use the pencil and masking tape to hang the filter paper in the jar. Perfect! The alcohol is just touching the filter paper, but not our pigment sample. And that's just how we want it. While we're waiting, let's set up one more of these tests, this time using leaves from a different tree. Some kinds of leaves will have more dramatic results or slight variations in color. It will be interesting to see what these leaves show. Okay, it's time to have a look. Sure enough, we see another color on this filter strip. There are strong yellow areas along with the green shades. The alcohol separated the pigments, and the heavier ones stayed near the bottom of the filter strip. So it's true. There were other colors in the leaf all along. Amazing! Don't forget to make notes about what you observed. You can try this experiment with leaves from lots of different kinds of trees to see how many different pigments come to the surface. They may have more colors, or fewer colors, or different colors. It's fun to find out.
Deciduous forests grow in layers. The highest is called the emergent layer. It has the very tallest trees. They can reach 25 to 30 meters. That's 80 to 100 feet in height, and 1 to 1.5 meters, or 3 to 5 feet in width. Many live from 100 to 250 years. The canopy is also dominated by tall trees. In temperate deciduous forests, the main species are often maples, oaks, birch, beech, and hickory. But there are more than 800 kinds of deciduous trees in existence. The leaves and branches of the trees in the canopy interlock, keeping the lower parts of the forest in shade. The shady understory contains small trees, shrubs, and bushes that can live in areas of low light. The understory layer is home to many birds, but only about 30% are year-round residents: woodpeckers, eagles, owls, and hawks, to name a few. 70% of the bird species found in deciduous forests are migratory. Each year, their migration path takes them in search of more plentiful food and better breeding grounds. They travel hundreds or thousands of miles from their winter homes in warmer tropical forests. Up north, they spend the summer dining, breeding, and raising their young. In the fall, they turn tail and fly south again, where the food supply is better during the winter months. On the forest floor, life is also abundant. One reason is the soil. Because of the vast quantity of fallen leaves and the ample moisture in temperate deciduous forests, the soil tends to be extremely fertile and deep. It's richer than the soil of either coniferous forests or rainforests. Deciduous soil forms in layers. One of the most important layers is a deep base of humus. The humus is spongy. It's made up of well-decomposed plant and animal matter that's been thoroughly mixed and broken down by decomposers, like earthworms, insects, fungi, and bacteria. On top of the humus is a thick carpet of leaf litter, dead and decaying leaves in the process of being mixed and broken down. With all of these nutrients feeding into it, the soil is rich enough to support the growth of many different plants. Decomposers, including insects and snails, are residents of the leaf litter on the forest floor. To them, the decaying organic matter is like a buffet. Snails are very well adapted to their environment. Their shells protect their soft bodies from damage, and when the weather gets too dry, they hide inside their shells and seal up the entrance to keep from drying out. The leaf litter also protects these ground dwellers and others. It shields them from harsh weather. Insects and small mammals take cover beneath the fallen leaves, and so do amphibians. Amphibians are vertebrates, or animals with backbones, that spend part or most of their lives in water. Amphibians are cold-blooded, or ectothermic. They depend on external sources of heat to stay warm and active. Some mammals, such as raccoons and bears, are omnivores, animals that eat both meat and plants. Deer, on the other hand, are herbivores, animals that eat only plants. They live in the deciduous forest year-round, browsing on twigs, leaves, bark, shrubs, fruit, and nuts. In winter, it's harder to find food, but many survive, though some fall prey to the forest's predators, like wolves and mountain lions. These animals are carnivores. They eat other animals. In many areas, there are few of these large predators left because of human interference.
Just as animals need adaptations to defend themselves, so do plants. Plants may seem passive, but they can get their point across. Sharp thorns, thick bark, and irritating chemicals all discourage hungry plant eaters and careless hikers.
But plants can protect themselves from everything. Around 10,000 years ago, forests covered about half the Earth's land surface. Now they cover less than a third. The rich soil of these forests has made them ideal for farmland, and their valuable wood has put them in great demand for logging. Today, very little remains of the old growth, or original forests, that once covered Europe and North America. In the United States alone, more than 80% of the temperate deciduous forests have been cut in the last 200 years. While few of these forests exist in their original state, many have regrown. Many abandoned farms in particular have undergone a natural process called succession, in which a deforested area regenerates. When the farm fields are no longer planted with crops, grass begins to grow. Then some bushes spring up, then gradually trees. Many of these second growth forests are almost as diverse and beautiful as the original ones, supporting lots of wildlife. The problem is that some species that disappeared when the forests were cut have been lost forever.
Habitat destruction and overhunting have almost eliminated the wolves, mountain lions, and black bears of North America. These forests have been their home or habitat for millions of years. Throughout the last 2 centuries, there has been a campaign to destroy these animals because they were thought to threaten livestock and people. Also, the value of their furs and meat made them important game animals, but their fate is slowly improving. Thanks to conservation efforts, many are starting to come back. For example, wild turkeys, which once wandered North America's deciduous forests in flocks of hundreds, are slowly becoming more numerous again. And bears, now protected from hunting in some areas, are recovering too.
Wolves are also making a comeback, but it's been a close call. Red wolves were actually thought to be extinct in the wild in 1980. Then, zoologists began breeding them in captivity. Now, there are enough that some are being set free in wildlife refuges and national parks in eastern North America. They can only be released in areas where there's plenty of space so they don't bother people or domestic animals. So far, they're doing well.
There is also another type of deciduous forest that's less well known than temperate deciduous forests. These are tropical deciduous forests. They're located in the world's tropical zone, around the equator, where temperatures are warm year-round. They usually have thicker undergrowth than temperate deciduous forests. Tropical deciduous forests often have a short season of heavy rain, followed by a long dry season. They shed their leaves like the trees in temperate deciduous forests, but it's the start of the dry season that triggers the leaves to fall, not cooler temperatures and shorter days. The return of the rains revives the parched plants, and new leaves begin to grow. Scattered throughout the world, tropical deciduous forests are found in Central America, South America, the West Indies, Africa, India, Southeast Asia, and Australia. Tropical deciduous forests have a layered structure, like temperate deciduous forests, though they have different species of trees. The trees of the canopy are not as closely intertwined as in a temperate forest, so more light filters down to the lower layers, causing a jungle of dense undergrowth. In the understory, the vegetation includes lianas or vines that climb up through the trees. The plants on the forest floor sometimes can get so thick it's difficult to find a path. Unlike the temperate deciduous forest, the soil tends to be poor and lacking in nutrients. But many tall trees manage to grow here, like teak. These trees have been valued for centuries because their wood is both beautiful and very durable. To save the forests and make sure there's plenty of teak in the years to come, people are planting these trees on farms.
Have you ever seen anything made from bamboo? Bamboo is found in some tropical deciduous forests. While it may look like a tree, it's actually a grass, and bamboo stalks can grow as high as 30 meters.
The animals of the tropical deciduous forests are as diverse as the plants. In Indonesia, they include wild boars and rusa, or Timor deer. One of this deer's main predators is the world's largest lizard, the Komodo dragon, another resident of the tropical deciduous forests of Indonesia. This reptile can grow up to 3 meters or 10 feet long and weigh up to 135 kilograms, which is a whopping 300 pounds. The Komodo dragon is known as a ferocious predator that's fast and cannibalistic, which means it eats its own kind. But the Komodo's main diet is carrion, animals that are already dead. These lizards can live to be 100 years old.
Phew! I'm sure glad those reptiles don't make their home in my neighborhood.
Tropical deciduous forests and their wildlife are facing similar threats to those of temperate forests, habitat loss and overhunting. Orangutans that live in the remote deciduous jungles of Asia are endangered due to extensive logging and forest fires.
How can you help make forests near you a better home for animals and a better place for eco-exploring? You can take part in local cleanup efforts to keep these habitats free of trash and pollution. Cleanups also help spread the word about just how important our forests are, and how important it is to keep them clean and safe for all living things.
There are so many fascinating plants and animals in deciduous forests that a great many scientists are researching and exploring them to learn all they can about these precious natural resources.
We've learned a lot about the deciduous forest ourselves. These are the forests where the trees shed their leaves to give us such fabulous foliage displays. And there are both temperate deciduous forests and tropical ones, depending on which climate zone they're in. In temperate forests, the leaves change color and fall off the trees in autumn in response to colder temperatures and less light. In the tropics, trees shed their leaves when the dry season starts.
The animals of deciduous forests need to adapt to many changes throughout the year, and they've developed their own different ways of coping, such as migration.
The fertile soil and tall trees of the deciduous forests have made them prime places for logging and farming. Some are gone forever, but some have regenerated. The oldest trees are gone, but many young forests are healthy and diverse. And some of the animals threatened when the forests were first cut down are now coming back.
Well, I'd like to do some more hiking in the deciduous forest.
Hey, I wonder if we'll run into any forest wildlife.
In case we do, we shouldn't forget to take a camera.